Good morning. This is Sweetie Berry with Calling All Women to the Well, a weekly show where the women of Dare Whimsy gather to explore and to discuss life as a creative and gifted woman. This morning's show, we're talking with the girls. In other words, no one is the expert or the guru here. We've come together to share our own experiences of gathering women and how community and relationships matter in our own lives. We're walking lots of different paths, from helping professionals to psychologists to speakers to playwrights to physicians to stay-at-home moms. This is truly a community of gifted women in all walks of life. Good morning. I'd first like to introduce Gail Roddy. She's a playwright who wrote Calling All Women to the Well. Gail is involved in many forms of gathering women. The founder of Ruthira's organization, she for 17 years has led a group for at-risk students and young adults in Minneapolis. And we're excited to hear from Gail this morning. Good morning, Gail. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sweetie.
Good day. Would you share with us about how you see relationships making a difference for women in all walks of their life?
Well, I've had a wonderful opportunity to see how important it is as we go through life, especially when we're early in life. As a girl, when we don't know how to form relationships, it's so important that older women teach us the ropes on how to connect with one another, because it isn't anything that is really, really natural. It has to be taught. There have to be boundaries taught, things about relationships that may be painful or difficult, but you have to find a way to work through them. And as in all of my years of mentoring at-risk girls, it's been about 20 years now, I've been fascinated to learn how they view the world, because each generation is different. I'm, of course, a couple of generations removed from the teenager, and it's been fascinating to watch how there are still some core issues that we all struggle with and that we all enjoy in our interactions with other women. That has been one of the fascinating things to find out, that the more things change, the more things stay the same. And so I love bringing women together of all ages and helping to facilitate that, because it's so important throughout our lives.
It all begins in relationships. Relationships with ourselves, of knowing who we are, knowing what our skills are, knowing where our weak areas are. I count on my friends, a lot of them on this panel: Ann Moll, Dr. Edith Johnston, Gail Roddy, Dr. Martina McGowan, Sarah Cook. These are my friends in real life, people that I count on to have relationships with me that are honest, that are able to say, hey, you know what, you're overworking, you got to have a break, and things that I can call and say, wow, we did this, and they're excited for us. Those relationships are often outside my comfort zone. It was a lot easier just to kind of keep things to myself, but I only grow when I'm in a relationship with other people who are growing. When we get isolated, it can be such a dangerous place for a gifted and creative woman, because we do have all different kinds of perceptions of what we're thinking, and sometimes our creativity comes in seasons and in waves, and we may need help remembering to take care of ourselves and to have self-care. But likewise, it's great to have a cheerleading squad, and I always wanted to be a cheerleader for others. Good morning, Lacey. Talk to us about how you function with relationships in your life. I know that as a professional counselor, there's some relationships you can't share out loud, but you also need that nurturing that comes from giving all the time. So how does that work in your world? You look great this morning, by the way.
Thank you. How does it work in my world? When we moved from the suburbs of Chicago out in the boondocks, I knew there was one place I needed to connect, and that was at church. And at church is where I find like-minded people of different generations, from the wee ones, the little kids, up to the senior saints. And right now, we're at a church where I go to a Bible study, and we meet at a home of a 95-year-old woman who was born in Kentucky. So if you go back in time, I mean, she lived through World War II, through the Great Depression, and through being in Kentucky during all that time, living through segregation, and just hearing her stories, hearing her vantage point on all of that is very worthwhile. But not only that, it's a place of connection. It's a place to know someone's been there before, and they not only survived those times. World War II would be, can't even imagine. That also, it's a time where she grew, and it it helps my heart knowing that if Dorothy, can grow in those times and share all that she has learned, that I also am growing and I also can share, whether it's with my counselees or just other people in my life. I have a place where I can share that love with others.
Love that. Gail, speak to that, because I know that that is the whole heart of where you come from in your work with women of all ages.
Oh, it absolutely is. As Lucy said, it's so nurturing to gain the stories, as I mentioned, from the adolescents. I mean, you would think I wouldn't learn anything from adolescents because I'm way past that, but there is so much we learn from them. And then on the other end, when I talk to my 90-year-old mother and some of her friends, I'm just astounded at the things that they know. And one thing about the older generation is they have honed down the sharing to the point where they just give these little quips of wisdom when they tell stories. And that is so fun to see. It's almost as though everything has been distilled down to this message that is so simple that any generation can glean from it. And that's what I just love about all the multi-generations sharing together. That has just been an amazing thing to be a part of and to continue to move through my life and to share that with other women.
Love that. Dr. Edith just continually shows us examples of that as she works with her granddaughters, as she communicates with her cohorts in business, when she takes multi-generational trips across country in a camper together. You just came back from one of those adventures, Dr. Edith. Talk to us about how intergenerational conversations affect your life and what a richness they are in your family.
Those conversations between all of us, I was just thinking as we were talking, think of the vision of a spider web, okay? And each of us are at the center of our spider web. But then there's those little ties all along the way where the runners go out, and that's our connections between each other. And there's always new runners. So we've always got that new generation coming on that brings and widens and expands our connection. So I just thought that was a really neat thing. And then if you see the dewdrops on it, then you know, oh, that's sparkling at the moment. There's a new insight coming at this moment from that connection and that relationship. So it's always there for strength together of all of us, and also that expansion of new ideas, new connections, new understanding, new integrating of all of our thoughts and ideas. How the road trip recently with granddaughters, daughters, and myself, so we had 3 generations in the RV, was interesting because who wanted to see what was important for them, what was the experience for them, was different for each of us, but it's still, because all of us were together, the most important fabric of the whole trip was the fact that we were together. So it didn't matter that the rain came some nights and we just stayed in the RV and had a good time telling stories, playing games, watching the kids be silly standing on their heads. Whatever it was, that family, that connection was important for us. The time for even the sons, the husbands to be there, in this case it was my sons, that was good to include them, but it was really, really important with the fact, too, that we had the 3 generations of women there, and to be able to look at different ways to bring family together from the feminine perspective and bring in that strength of how the women bring families together and the importance of connection and being able to care for both ends of the spectrum, our elders and our children.
Love that. The things that I really value about you, Edith, is that you not only teach methods of having healthy relationship and helping people figure out where that's bottoming out for them in your work as a multi-talent helper. You're a helping professional, help people figure out their lives, but you also live it. And so it's so much more meaningful for me to hear lessons from someone who's showing by their living example how that affects their lives. When I work with young children, when I work with middle-aged middle schoolers, or whether I'm with young adults or college girls, or even my strategy clients who are grown, they're adults, it's so important and valuable to me to help them understand that who they surround themselves with is very much going to influence who they become. That doesn't matter if you're a 4-year-old learning some really tacky habits at preschool, or whether you're a middle schooler where the newest thing may be to be ugly to somebody else. You know, we set our goals, we set our aspirations based on what we're exposed to. And part of that intergenerational conversation is about being aware that if you're not surrounded and exposed to things that are different than you've experienced, you can't set your boundaries or your visions very high. I am forever enriched by people like Virginia Smith, who came into my life and taught me that I could have a business, I could have a home, I could have a career, but most importantly, I could have a life because I would choose to develop the gifts that were natural within me. I will be forever changed by Lucy Cabe, who as a very young child was an organist at our church. She was a very wealthy business owner, and her husband and she were great philanthropists, and they started things like Wildwood, the music in Arkansas, and she throughout her life functioned and focused on only efforts that truly her heart loved, and she lived a rich life because of it. Those early influences at 3, 4, 5 into my 40s have forever changed who I am, and their voices in my mind, even from childhood, remind me where the path is that creates an abundant life. It's just so important that we get that message to other kids, and I mean by kids, whether they're 12 or 28. Isolation can be such a devastating thing for a gifted or creative woman, and that comparison, analysis, and all the perfectionism that can come up, we talk about it every week, but you know, every week we see creative and gifted women committing suicide, inflicting harm, giving up, staying in isolation, going missing in action, because they don't know how to deal with the differences and the surges of being an extraordinary woman. And part of that becomes by creating communities within schools, within homes, within your area, within your friendships, to reach out to include others who may benefit from your space, but also you will benefit from theirs. Lucy, can you talk to me a little bit about, because you have a child who is very creative and very able to do, but he's very different too. And I don't want to make this about him, but you've had some experiences as a parent about how important it is to help create that community for him, and to also create a community of friends who understand what it's like to have children and to be at that stage with them in parenthood, whether they're special needs or whether they're gifted or whatever, because we count on each other in that space. Share with us a little bit about your walk in that space with community.
Well, for myself and my son, a lot of it had to do with, for me, reaching out and finding other people who were in similar situations, other women, other mothers, as well as getting a hold of what was available at the schools and making a community there with teachers and other helpers in the schools. So at the parent level, and then at the level of the schools, as well as looking for who would be good influences in my son's life. And that would be true of any parent and any kid. I mean, there's so many different people out there, but who are the people who would speak into my son's life, whether that is a neighbor kid, someone at school, someone from church, just being aware and being vigilant, but not being over the top vigilant, you know, not like trying to squash him like a bug, but being very aware, and then using the different communities to not only help him, but, you know, frankly, to help me.
Well, that's it. You know, one of the things that I just appreciate so much is that we do have each other. You know, I started Dare Whimsy to start gathering community of women because I went to schools all over the United States in the last 2 decades, and I heard women and teachers and parents and girls saying, where is our place? Where can we talk about what it is to be a gifted girl? You know, public schools no longer really support the gifted programs nationally. Some schools are better than others, but there's just a kind of attitude that says you've got the ability, so you don't have to have extra help. Well, you know what? It would also rank true that giftedness is a disability, because it is a quadrant off of what other guys experience. That means we've got to learn new tools, and we've got to learn new understandings of who we are so that we can function in a way that's healthy and safe. And sometimes that's not taught at schools, and often it's not taught in homes. So to have a place that says, oh, you too? You really are cyclic in what you do and your creativity? Wow, you feel like you're alone and maybe nobody gets this? Those are conversations that we have as Dare Whimsy women, the Women of Dare Whimsy, but we have them with school children, we have them with seasoned professionals, I have them with startup experts, but the important thing is we have them. I always laugh about Brene Brown, who wrote such wonderful books and has continued to write such wonderful books, but she has studied shame to the nth level, thousands and thousands of case histories that she took herself, and yet her personal response to shaming was, what? You too? It didn't just happen to me? You see, even when we have all the proof around us, even when we ourselves have done the research that shows that whatever's happening to us or happened through us or to around us is true for other people, we still tend to think that we're the only one that deals with it or has it dealt with us. And so I think those conversations at the well, whether it's the 90th birthday party for Gail's mom or whether it was us gathering in a very snowy day in Arkansas, that time of companionship and community really matters. We're so enhanced today that we're able to pick up the Skype or pick up the Hangout and talk across the nation, across the world to whoever, and to have that community response when you're needing that quick step of, does this sound right to you? Am I seeing this wrong? Could this be done more eloquently than what I'm doing? Because I really don't want to be crass to someone, but this is bugging me. Talk to me about how that's made a difference in your life, Gail, because you've really come online and you've really created your own community, and I'm excited to tell in August what's happening in your world. But you've done a simple thing. You started a Monday morning message, and I'd love to hear about that a little bit. Don't want to give away everything because you've got a whole lot of things to share on that. But tell us why you started that Monday video and what it meant to you.
Well, sweetie, before I actually named it to your Monday hug, I had been doing it for several weeks, just sending out a little 30-second video Monday morning because I felt it was so important for me to have that kind of rah-rah, get the week started. Nothing huge, nothing about you're going to go out and conquer the world today and your bank account is going to be filled with $5,000 today. It was simply, I know you've made it this far. Today is Monday. It's a new week. And you're going to just go through this week and you're going to live your life. You're going to probably have some challenges, but I know you're going to have some joys because that's the way all our lives are. It doesn't matter where we come from, what our experiences are. There are going to be positive experiences. So I just wanted to just send out that little 30, 40-second thing for people to just kind of grab on and say, yes, she's right. I don't expect that I'm going to make $5,000 today. Maybe I will, but if I don't, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be just fine. This is my life. And so now I decided, okay, I'll just make it just a little more concrete by actually calling it your Monday hug, because who doesn't want a hug, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
Well, I know the way I think that I get a lot of Monday morning hugs from you, but I love your video and your voice, and I'm going to encourage you every day to take your morning hug or whatever other name you come up with, because I know that you've got several things in store that I can't spill the beans on yet, but it's very exciting. It doesn't matter whether you're a young child or a teenager or an adult. We all need encouragement, and you are an ambassador of encouragement to girls. I love the fact that when they come to Calling All Women to the Well, that you celebrate every single age, size, color, nationality, culture, and they are celebrated in the thing that they all share, and that is relationships. It's a beautiful, beautiful passage, and it's a pretty thing for me personally to watch and see what happens. Dr. Edith, talk to us about when you're talking about multi-talents, and that's one of the things that we discuss a lot on the Gifted Women, because so many of us have various types of talents and gifts, and we have so many opportunities and so many directions. How does community allow us time to have those opportunities, as well as how does it encourage us to take time for those opportunities? Because I know for me personally, I have a paint class that I go to once a month. I'm not really a painter. I'm not really good at that. And the point for me is not to go do something I already know how to do, but to go do something where everybody else is a beginner too. And that's a certain kind of fun that brings a whole different light to community.
Yes, as multi-talents, we may have 101 interests, but say we've only explored 2 or 3, maybe 2 or 3 dozen of them. like you said, going to the painting is exploring maybe another interest. You don't have to have exceptionally high, well-developed, mastered talents to enjoy it, because one of our characteristics is new exploration, new discovery, curiosity, wanting to know more, wanting to just see what it feels like, what the experience is about. And so having communities to be able to do that, because sometimes, I think we've all talked about this morning, is that it could be a little scary to try something new and different, a little scary because we're not perfect with it already yet yesterday. And so to have a community of being able to go out and try new things and discover things. I ran the river a few years ago with a women's group. I'd been in a ducky once and been on a raft a couple times on the river, but this time we were going out for a full week. And I didn't know these women, but several of them did it as an annual trip. It was kind of something that they celebrated each year. But talk about a good, fun time, bringing you in, letting you do it, running the rapids, and running. And the women, I was like almost one of the babies of the group, and I was fairly mature at the time. And so those kinds of explorations, those coming together, and being able to learn, the support they got from it, the encouragement I got from it, the fact that, you know what? I didn't swim in the river, so that was a major accomplishment for me. Did I run the rapids as well as all of everybody else? No, but I didn't dump the boat, so that's okay. And I think that community for us to come together and explore those things gives us the ability to learn how to learn, to be able to get over the fear of not being perfect in everything, and at the same time have that strength and that joy and those moments of saying, hey, there's others like me, there's others that have interest at different levels, and we can do this together and have fun.
Love that. I think it's so important. I'd love to popcorn us a little bit. There are only 4 of us here right now, and that's about the perfect age for us to each call on each other. So I'll begin about why friendships matter to me and what's my most favorite way to gather friends. And for me personally, my most favorite way is to gather them around my dinner table, whether that's locally in a hotel or on the road, to just bring them together and to have laughter and mirth while we prepare food together, while we prepare meals together, particularly desserts afterwards. That's really fun to see people get ooey gooey and all the fun things that happen when we cook together. But just to gather us in the kitchen. Something about the kitchen for me just makes it a whole lot deeper, whether I'm working with business people or whether I'm working with close personal friends. There's just a camaraderie that happens, and things that come out in the kitchen while we're cooking together tend to just be so much more transparent, and we learn a lot about who each other are. So that's my favorite way to gather people. Lucy, what's your favorite way?
I'm coming to your house to eat. My favorite way of gathering people, that's a tough one. I'd have to pick 2. One is online. I meet so many very neat people online, and I get to know them. I might read their blogs. I might message them. We might end up making phone calls. We might even meet each other, depending where we live. That's one way, but that's like getting in through the internet door. And the other way would be sometimes gathering a friend and going for a walk. And together we're going for a walk, we're getting exercise, we're out in the sun, like today's a sunny day, finally, yay. And just enjoying each other's company. I'm one of those people, I'm not like a person in a big group. I'm more of an introvert. I'm more of a one-on-one or in a small group type person. So going for a walk is a great way to get to know somebody.
It absolutely is. Who will you popcorn to? And you guys just call the next person after you.
Okay, Gail, go for it.
Thanks, Lucy. You know, I think relationships are so important for me because I have that gifted girl thing where I'm basically an introvert and I can get too isolated. I do truly enjoy my own company, my own thoughts, but of course the downside of that is I can become too isolated and cut people off because I'm reveling in all my introversion. So for me it's good to have connections and to get out of the house. So since that is such a thing in this culture, to get out and have it involve food, then I would say that's would be my biggest thing, to grab a few girlfriends and we go to a restaurant and we have some good, healthy food, of course, and we just share and talk. Or it can be over coffee in the morning. It doesn't have to be specifically food, but I really do need to get out of the house and do this, and so then that keeps me from getting too much into that isolation. Edith, I know you have something fabulous to tell us.
Oh, well, two things right quick. Like, one, I thoroughly enjoyed the virtual world and getting on Twitter chats. It's just amazing how you can chat with people from all over the world, and so much goes on so rapidly. It really does keep you focused and stimulated. Two, I like to throw birthday parties, but I like to throw them for myself. And it's a celebration. And it's a matter of, then everybody gets to come. It's potluck. We all get to come. I have silly games. I have, even whether it was my 50th, my 60th, we are blowing airplanes. We are having piñatas. We are having DJs or whatever. But it's just that way, and it's intergenerational. So everybody comes because it's just a good reason to celebrate life.
I love that. And I love the fact that you love to throw birthday parties. You know, one of our Women of Dare Whimsy, who is not with us currently, is Kristen Smith, and she is the absolute best at throwing parties. She came down during my 50th birthday party and just made it an event with very little notice. Some people just have the gift of that hospitality, and they bring it to whatever party they are. I'm so sorry that Miss Bobby is not here with us today as well. She is recovering from bronchitis, but she is party central, and she has such a gift at coming to wherever a crowd is and bringing them together through all kinds of things. In her university college classes, she does great in-depth connecting exercises to get people to connect to each other in her college classes. When she's a children's minister, I've seen her take crowds of 300 kids that were all over the place with very few adults and suddenly get them all moving together and grooving through dance and drumming. It's so fun to watch how different people gather people in communities, whether they're very personal communities like Gail and I having lunch, or whether it's a close-knit community like the Dare Whimsy women who gather together virtually and in person at times, or whether it's the community of like voices. You know, we all work with groups and communities that are like voices, where we're all for children being protected, or we're all for, you know, opportunities for the ceiling to be raised on women's incomes. There's just all levels of community that can be very beneficial for all of us. I'd love to popcorn one more time very quickly because we only have about 2 minutes to do it. And I'd like you to do a shout out. Don't name the name, but a shout out to a friend and what they've meant to you. It could be something as easy as, I want to talk to my teacher who taught me that I can do something. But don't even really have to name the name. You're welcome to. I'm going to. But think of who has made a difference in your community and who's influenced you to become the person you are. I'll start with mine. One of my community was named Beverly Watkins, and she's very much alive in Arkansas, but she was a Renaissance woman. She led our Girl Scout troop. She not only took us across country in a van as a trip, but she showed us that you can change careers in the middle of your life and create a new life that's different and very meaningful. Bev Watkins made a huge difference in my childhood, and she is just a permanent part of what my heart is today. Lucy.
The person I think of her name is Vivian Wright, and she's pushing 100. I met her a few years ago, and the reason why she's important to me is because she is such an encouragement. And while I was going through stuff, just a variety of different stuff, a lot of transitions, she was an anchor, her voice in my life, the way she spoke. It was like I forgot who mentioned it, I think it may have been Gail, that the older folks sometimes they can just say that little thing and it's like, aha, totally. And so I really appreciate Vivian for that. Edith.
Oh, I'm gonna shout out to Deb Prather, and she's a peer, and it's the fact that over the last probably decade we have been a support system for exploring and expanding and growing ourselves in various relationships and in career. And just her support, her persistence, we've had pity parties, we've had celebration parties, we've had push it to the wood parties, whatever it was, and it's just that kind of connectedness through whatever our experiences was, being the support for each other.
Fantastic.
Hey, Gail?
I would have to say my 90-year-old mom, Helen, and I hope one day I can get her on the Dare Whimsy show. I know she would love that. But she's taught me throughout my life to be gentle with others, because you never know what other people are going through. You have to always assume that even if they are mean, that you have to be gentle with them, because people always have a backstory. I've never forgotten that, and she's told me that since I was a child, and now that she's still telling me that as a 90-year-old, it just fits as it did when I was 10. So, Mom, shout out to you.
Love that. I've met your mom, and she is precious. Guys, we're at the end of another show. It seems like our time just flies by. On Thursdays at Dare Whimsy, that's D-A-R-E, Whimsy, WHIMSY.com, we share a sister post, an answer to what is meaningful to us about that week's topic. You can also follow us home and read more at the end of those post paragraphs to see where we do and what we do in our professional lives and our personal lives. Each of us have blogs, we have businesses, we have professions that we do outside of Dare Whimsy, and not all of us will be your cup of tea, but somebody, I bet, will resonate, and we want to hear from you too. You know, no one's a guru here. We're a community of women who learn from each other at Dare Whimsy. We're so excited to have you here. We're here every Wednesday at 10 o'clock Central Time. We have a YouTube channel at Dare Whimsy. We also have a Google page at google.com/Dare Whimsy. You'll look for us on Dare Whimsy at Facebook as well. So we hope that you'll join us. If you see articles on gifted kids, if you see articles about women gathering, if you have interesting conversations you'd like to share with us as a professional or as a writer or as a person, we'd like to hear from you. We look forward to seeing you next week at Dare Whimsy. Between us girls, this has been Sweetie Berry. Thanks for joining us.